There's no defending it intellectually. There's only one way to explain it, and that is a parent's love. If Joe Biden did profit illegally, he did not pardon himself. He's still on the hook.
The Democrat Party has been lying to the American public, not for 4 years, but for 50 years, maybe 100 years. Now I'm starting to wonder, was that his cocaine in the White House?
This is me playing the world's smallest violin for their fake hypocritical outrage.
The reason I'm so pissed off, it helps Trump. When he pardons the January 6 rioters, it will be just that much more acceptable to them.
I don't really care about this pardon. What I care about is the level of deception.
The high moral ground, which was already extremely rocky for Democrats, you've been effectively neutered. President Biden has pardoned the turkey and handed a late Thanksgiving gift to Donald Trump. Hunter Biden was convicted in June of 3 felony charges over the purchase of a gun and 9 tax evasion charges in a separate case in September. His father, the president, has repeatedly and emphatically pledged not to interfere.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know. And I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
But now he has, and the language used in a lengthy statement released to justify this screeching 180-degree turn is the final nail in the coffin of Biden's credibility. He called the prosecution selective and unfair. He said raw politics from political opponents has led to a miscarriage of justice and that the only reason the convictions ever happened is because of a political campaign. Compare that to the words used by Trump and his supporters about the spurious Stormy Daniels conviction and try to spot the difference.
This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent, and I think it's just a disgrace.
Well, he was right. There's no difference besides the Trumpian rhetorical flourish. And when President Trump starts issuing pardons for the January 6 rioters, which he will blame on a political campaign and a miscarriage of justice, the Democrats will find they have tumbled off the high moral ground and landed flat on their hypocritical faces. Now, look, I don't blame Joe Biden for looking out for his troubled son, whom he clearly loves and respects. I'd have done the same. In fact, I even suggested a month ago that Donald Trump should consider pardoning Hunter Biden as a unifying gesture in these febrile times. That's because I've been repeatedly assured that President Biden is a man of his word, and his words have so often been like this.
Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
But now everybody is equal under the law except the President of the United States and his children. When Trump is inevitably attacked for taking care of his family and supporters over the next few months, expect an aggressive and curt 2-word response. Hunter Biden. In just a moment, we'll debate all the latest with my panel, but first I'm joined by the former Democratic mega donor, John Morgan. John, thank you so much for joining me. First of all, your reaction as a former Democratic mega donor to this bombshell news overnight that President Biden, after repeated and emphatic denials he would do this, has now pardoned his criminal son, Hunter.
Well, I'm not surprised at all, and I'll tell you why. If you look at Joe Biden in context, years ago he lost a child and a wife in a car accident. He's then raising these small children. He raises 2 boys. One turns out to be an addict. One turns out to be the next great thing. The one who turned out to be the next great thing, Bo, dies also. And now you're left with Hunter. Joe Biden has always had a blind spot for his children. I think the way he looked at this was not as president, but as a parent. And as a parent, I think what he said to himself, the only reason that my son was prosecuted was because of me. And I'm not going to let that happen. I'm 80-something years old. I'm his father, and my love for him is so intense that I'm willing to do what I'm going to do because he was taking this for me, and I'm going to take it from him. That's what I believe his thought process is.
Right, which is completely understandable in terms of a father making that call for his son. And I know the Biden family story very well. I've spoken to Joe Biden about what happened to his family, and it was a very moving, powerful conversation. I knew Beau Biden very well. He appeared a lot on my old CNN show. However, and it's a significant however, he has repeatedly publicly denied this year that he would do anything to pardon his son. More importantly, he's put up his White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, to repeatedly say from the White House podium this.
But from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered.
The president would not pardon or commute the sentence for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
His son, Hunter, is also up for being sentenced next month. Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
President Biden says that he's not going to pardon his son, Hunter. Is he going to ask Donald Trump to do that?
I don't have anything else to share about that. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole on this. I've been very clear. The president's been very clear when we've been asked this question.
I mean, they were very clear, both the president and his press secretary, but it turned out that nothing they were saying was correct, which prompts the question, were they deliberately lying, knowing that he was going to do this? Or has President Biden just thrown his press secretary and, I assume, all his top team under the bus because they were all out there defending him and saying he wouldn't do this, and now he's done it?
Well, as you know, Piers, politicians are politicians. All those statements were said when he was still running for re-election, and now he's not. How many times have you and I heard politicians say, I'm going to only serve for 8 years. I'm going to only serve for 12 years. I'm going to term limit myself. And as soon as that time comes, they go, well, the people still want me. I'm not surprised by it. The optics are terrible. But when I bore it down, I look at myself. I've got 4 children. I got 6 grandchildren. I would take a bullet for them or me, every day. And at the end of the day, it gets down to that. I'm an old man with a troubled son. I know the heat I'm going to take. He knows the heat he's going to take for this. This will be with him forever. But for him, his son, look, I was at the White House dinner when the Prime Minister of India was there. He has Hunter there. Hunter's been front and center this whole time. Joe Biden never ran from him. He ran to him. The love we have for our children, I believe, is the love God wants us to understand his love is like for us. I don't want to get too religious here, but that love for a child is so damn powerful that I can understand what he did.
Well, you see, look, I like I say, on a human level, I don't disagree with you. The problem is, it seems to me, is that by making such a shameless and frankly very hypocritical U-turn in the way that he's done, albeit for exactly the reasons I'm sure that you have said, although there is another part to this I'll come to in a moment, which is I think complicating that picture. But at the same time, Joe Biden has now got a legacy, hasn't he, which he's left his party, where he carried on too long. He should have stood down, I think, at the latest at the start of the year and allowed a proper process to choose an effective nominee, but he didn't. He left it so late that he then self-imploded in that debate with Trump, and as a consequence had to be pushed aside, which he was ruthlessly. But then Kamala Harris got this weird coronation, again, without any competition. And I think that was really a chain of events which cost the Democrats the election. But now he's left a legacy where it's almost impossible now for Democrats to go after Trump for the next 4 years, as they would have been licking their lips at doing, on anything to do with shamelessness or hypocrisy or frankly downright lying or nepotism or any of these things, which Trump, they were already heating this up with his nomination picks, the ones involving family and so on. But how can the Democrats do any of that when their president, who's still president now until January the 20th, that their president has done such a shameless, hypocritical act and lied so brazenly to the American people about his intentions over that act?
what they will do is they will discard him as fast as they can. They will say it was wrong, he shouldn't have done it, and that will be that. Look, the hypocritical part about the Democratic Party is they were running on this notion that democracy was at stake. And so what did they do? They nominated someone with no democracy. A person who never got one delegate when she ran for president. A person who could never be untied from Biden-Harris. The coronation you talked about, that's the hypocrisy here. Mm-hmm. This hypocrisy will go away quickly. Joe Biden's calculus is this, and believe me, he's very, very concerned about his legacy. But when he measures his legacy versus the pain that it would be for him and his child, he has said clearly, to hell with my legacy, I love my child more.
Well, I think he's torched his legacy, if I'm honest. But here's the complication I alluded to, which is that the pardon includes any activity starting on January the 1st, 2014. That is when Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma that year, a Ukrainian energy company, where he was paid millions, it's believed up to $11 million in his tenure there, despite knowing absolutely nothing, which qualified him to be an expert in energy. While his father was the Vice President of the United States and deeply personally involved at Barack Obama's instigation in US policy towards Kyiv. And the implication from this incredibly wide-ranging pardon is that there may be other things that we don't know yet, which have been hinted at and rumored by and so on, involving what the Biden family may have done in relation to Burisma, which Joe Biden has now effectively pardoned in advance. Tim Pool on X said, whoa, it's Burisma. That's the real reason for the pardon. The gun charge and tax shit were to create plausible deniability when he pardoned his son for selling out the United States. I mean, are you concerned? Look, I know you've been close to the family. You flew with Frank Biden, Joe Biden's brother, to the inauguration in 2020 and in his plane 2021. You've always called yourself a Joe Biden Democrat before, and so on. Are you worried when you read the specific nature of this pardon that is really what this may be about?
No, because there's no defending it intellectually, especially when you superimpose those words that you put up before this conversation. There is no defending it intellectually. There's only one way to explain it, and that is a parent's love. If your child robbed a bank, would you turn them in if you knew? If your child did something terrible, would you turn them in? Those are the kind of the Sophie type choices that all of us, one time we were at a dinner and somebody said, if your son murdered someone, would you turn them in? I don't know, Piers. Would you? I don't know what I would do. If I'm going to be honest, I would probably not. It's terrible to say, but you see, my love
okay, but I would say to that, I probably wouldn't, if I'm honest with you. I think it's an interesting question, a moral question. I can't imagine I would turn any of my children in. However, I'm not the Vice President of the United States, right? When my son gets a job that was obviously a crony appointment, where they've only appointed him to that position, not because he has anything of any expertise to suit the role, but because they can pay him millions and they're buying access to the Vice President of the United States. And what we don't know is whether Joe Biden himself ever profited or benefited in any way from that scenario with Burisma and his son, Hunter. And many people think that he did. And the nature of this pardon, again, suggests that there is something to hide there that we're not being told. Else, why make it so specific to those dates?
Well, if Joe Biden did profit illegally, he did not pardon himself. He's still on the hook. He is still on the hook. From his point of view, he didn't take this point of view as a president, obviously. He took it as a parent. And he believes, look, the Trump trial in Manhattan was a sham. It was about he didn't report the true value of his buildings. Deutsche Bank knows the value of those buildings. It was a sham, and it helped re-elect him or elect him again to the presidency. Those persecutions, not prosecutions. But Joe Biden's looking at this going, you know what? It's because of me. It's because of me. And I am going to tarnish my legacy, perhaps, because my love is so great for my son that it's worth it. And it's not a defense, Piers. It's simply an explanation.
No,
Look,
I get it.
Roger Stone's a friend of Stone's a friend of mine, but he got pardoned.
Yeah. I understand.
Trump. Why?
Listen.
Because Trump believed that it was because of him that Roger got in trouble, and he took care of Roger.
I understand that. The other thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go, another son, which is Barron Trump, who's 18, is being widely credited, and you said yourself you thought he did a better job than Kamala Harris in the race, and you could absolutely make a good argument because he persuaded his dad in his late 70s to go off and do all these podcasts and YouTube shows and so on, which has clearly had a major impact on driving young men in particular to go and vote Trump and get him over the line. It was interesting to me, the Democrats, they just dropped the ball when it came to this kind of new media stuff, didn't they?
Well, they're circled by these progressives, and the progressives that were now running Joe Biden's campaign. It wasn't his campaign. These progressives decided that to go on Joe Rogan was a mistake. It was 50 million people worth of mistakes. Trump was 3 hours late getting to a rally because it was worth it to be on Joe Rogan. Barron Trump is a young man. He is in tune to what's going on at that age group. He said, Dad, go on not only Joe Rogan, but as many podcasts as you can. And Trump listened to him. The Harris campaign was a disaster from the beginning. It was a coronation, not a nomination. Look, you're supposed to get 47% of the vote no matter who you are. She barely got that. And I said it at the very beginning. And what I said, Piers, at the very beginning is Joe Biden was pissed that he was pushed out, and he pushed someone that the establishment, Obama didn't want her. He didn't endorse her for 5 days. Pelosi was going to have a convention, told the delegation she was the unwanted nominee, but by God, she got it, and she lost in a spectacular fashion. She didn't win anything. And here's the big, when I was at the White House for dinner a week ago, and the former governors were coming up to me, the internal polling that the party had showed them losing much worse than the polling that they were telling their donors about. So, as one former governor said to me, they lied to us. And why did they lie? To keep getting money in. And by the way, the money that was coming in was not for her. It was against Trump. Everybody that voted for her was voting against Trump. Everybody that voted for Trump was voting for Trump, and that's why she got a beat down.
There are reports she may try and run again. What would you say to that?
Well, look, she was spending money. She was spending money like a drunken sailor on payday. It was, Oprah getting production cost and Al Sharpton getting $500,000 for a sit down. My God, Piers, can you imagine what Trump would pay you for a sit down? Putting her face on the Sphere in Las Vegas for $900,000. The campaign workers are staying in 5-star resorts and flying on private jets. When Sam Walton built his company, he stayed 2 in a room in a budget hotel. That's how you become the richest man in the world. They had 100 days with $2 billion, and they spent it all and are still in debt, $20 million. Last week, I got a campaign request for money. And I got to say to them, it's effing over her. Stop.
Well, unfortunately,
it's over.
Unfortunately, John, our interview is now effing over, but it's been highly entertaining and very, very informative. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now to discuss all this is businessman Grant Cardone, who spoke at Trump's Madison Square rally, spokeswoman for Turning Point Action, Caitlin Sinclair, the host of Social Contract with Joe Walsh and former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh, and Wajahat Ali from the Democracy-ish Podcast. Well, welcome to all of you. Wajahat, I want to play you again the Karine Jean-Pierre statements on whether the President of the United States was going to pardon his son, because I think it is crucial to this whole debate. Let's have another listen.
But from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered.
Wajahat, I mean, I almost feel sorry for you today. A rare sentiment when you come on Uncensored, because you can normally give as good as you get. But honestly, man, what a bunch of shameless, lying hypocrites. Would you disagree with that assessment?
I think two reasons why Joe Biden turned on his initial promise. Number one, as your guest mentioned, father's love. And number two, because Donald Trump is not a normal president. I think Joe Biden thought he would win election. He probably thought Kamala Harris would win. If another Republican would have run, he probably thought, okay, there wouldn't be any vindictive prosecution. But Donald Trump, in the final month of his election campaign, said that the rest of us who are his critics are the enemy from within, on whom he would unleash the police and the National Guard, called us evil.
Why are you talking about Donald Trump?
Wait, listen.
Well, hang on. Why are you talking about Trump? I'm asking you about Biden and his press secretary. Well, hang on. Well, let me make it easier. I'm going to play you a little mashup of the president himself lying. Let's take a look.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I'm extremely proud of my son Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
I mean, Wajahat, he just lied. He obviously always intended to pardon him, and you've been you have rightly been very keen to remind everybody in every appearance you've made on this show about Trump's lack of veracity as you see it and how damaging to democracy that is. President Biden literally lied to the American people throughout the entire race. He knew he was going to pardon his son. So presumably, try not to mention Trump here. Just talk about Biden. Presumably
it's impossible.
Well, hang on, it's not impossible. You can literally take it in isolation and just give an honest view of what Biden has done here.
Number one, shouldn't have lied. He lied. That's wrong. Number two, I think he wasn't going to pardon him if he thought he would win or if he thought Kamala Harris would win. Why do I think he pardoned him? Two reasons. Number one, I'm a father. You're a father. I think your previous guest had it correct. A father's love for his son, Hunter Biden, who suffered from addiction and had to suffer 4 years of a vindictive witch hunt where they couldn't find anything on his laptop, got him on a trumped-up gun possession charge. Even when that came out, Republicans, hardcore MAGA people were like, that's weak, very rarely investigated, very rarely indicted, but they got him on that and tax evasion charges. He tried to pay back the taxes. They still got him. He realized, due to Trump's vindictiveness, because Trump is now president and Kash Patel most likely will be his FBI director, Kash Patel promised just 3 weeks ago he will go after Trump's enemies, including the media. You should be worried, Pierce, and also political rivals. Joe Biden, as an 82-year-old man, said, okay, I want to spare my son the trouble because Trump is so vindictive and cruel, and Kash Patel's the head of the FBI. Let me pardon him. Political pardons have been done by Republicans and by Democrats. Did Biden lie? He did. Did he go back on his word? He did. Should he be criticized that? He should be criticized for that, but this is why he did it. And if I may say this, for my panelists and for all your MAGA viewers, this is me playing the world's smallest violin for their fake hypocritical outrage. And to quote Melania Trump, I really don't care that they're pissed off. Do you? Because Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. MAGA doesn't care. Donald Trump pardoned the most easily like a hub of villainy. Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, his co-conspirators. MAGA didn't care. Literally, he pardoned Charles Kushner, the father of Jared Kushner, and just gave him a job as the ambassador to France. Talk about the swamp. MAGA doesn't care. Trump incited a violent insurrection. MAGA doesn't care. Trump literally committed criminal tax fraud through Trump Organization. MAGA doesn't care. So I don't care about this. It's a victimless crime. They went after Hunter Biden. He didn't use the gun to participate in a violent insurrection. If he did, he'd probably be part of the Trump cabinet.
Okay.
MAGA, of all people, should not care. They voted for a criminal.
And you know the problem with that wonderfully evocative soliloquy? If it was Donald Trump Jr. we were talking about, you'd have said the complete opposite. Let me bring in Grant Cardone here. I mean, Grant, I just found it breathtaking to wake up to that news this morning. Literally jaw-droppingly breathtaking. Not because I was particularly surprised that he did this for his son, but the fact that he allowed himself and his press secretary at the White House to so often lie to the American people. Why would Joe Biden not think that his legacy now is completely torched?
Because he's got away with it. He's gotten away with it his whole career. 50 years he's been lying to the American public. When he said he wouldn't pardon his son, the day he said that, I told my wife, I'm like, he will pardon his son 100%. And anyone that believed that is naive. And the fact that the Democratic Party believed Kamala was put in, that Hunter Biden somehow didn't do it, or the Burisma thing, he's not connected. This is ridiculous. The Democrat Party has been lying to the American public, not for 4 years, but for 50 years, maybe 100 years. I was a Democrat the first half of my lifetime until I realized they're lying to the middle class about saving the middle class. Probably Hunter Biden still has a drug problem, because what we know now is Joe Biden will lie about his son. He'll lie about his intentions. In this interview that you played earlier, he said, my son is a recovered addict. Now I'm starting to wonder, was that his cocaine in the White House? Is he actually really recovered? Look, we know this. He is a tax evader. He was carrying a gun illegally. He is a drug addict. Whether he's recovered or not, no one knows. And the Burisma thing is why they settled that case. Remember, he pled guilty to this so that it wasn't actually taken all the way into court. He pled guilty, so there must have been a deal, Piers, as you know. They made a deal to cover up the number one man, Joe Biden, his father.
Yeah. Joe Walsh, I was very interested to see your reaction to this, because I think we've talked about a lot of these issues in this campaign. You felt very strongly about Trump in many different ways, and yet here is Joe Biden, just so brazenly behaving like all the worst traits that Democrats would say Donald Trump behaves. Shamelessness, hypocrisy, lying, nepotism, all of it, all in one bang. How damaging is this? How shocked are you?
Piers, not shocked, but completely deflated. And by the way, I agree with everything you said to really open your show about this issue. The reason I'm so pissed off about what Joe Biden did is it's wrong. It sets a horrible precedent, but it helps Trump. And for those of us like Wajahat and me who believe and have been saying for years that Trump is a unique threat to this country, that Donald Trump is, in fact, uniquely corrupt and lawless and dishonest. We've been out there saying that for years. And what Biden did last night pulls the rug out from that. And Piers, to what you said, the lying. I believe Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth. Fine. That's what I believe. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about this. And I've already heard from a bunch of Trump supporters in the last 12 hours who've said, see, Joe, they all lie. See, Joe, Trump's not the only one who thinks he's above the law. Now Joe Biden thinks Hunter's above the law. So it's helped Trump. That's why it's such a bad move.
Yeah, and also, Joe, Trump has done what I knew he would do, which is immediately talk about the January 6th rioters, who many of whom obviously have been jailed. He says, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages, as he calls them, who've now been in prison for years, such an abuse and miscarriage of justice? Wajahat, we'll come to you in a moment, but Joe, of course he's going to say that. And of course people on the Republican side are going to say, well, if that's going to happen, then you've got to release these other guys. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. What it did, Piers, was it made all the bad stuff that Trump's going to do that much more acceptable to most Americans. I'm not talking about the far right. They'll follow Trump off the cliff. I'm not talking about the far left who liked the fact that Joe Biden pardoned his son. I'm talking about all the Americans in the middle who I've been trying to convince that Trump's a unique threat. Well, when he pardons the January 6 rioters, it will be just that much more acceptable to them because of what Joe Biden did last night.
Yeah, I think that's right. Caitlin, the other part of this, as I was saying earlier with my earlier guest, was this whole specific timing of the pardon from January the 1st, 2014, which would then cover the entire period that Hunter worked at Burisma, for which he had absolutely no expertise to warrant the job he got there, earning millions and millions of dollars, while his father was effectively the envoy to Ukraine on behalf of Barack Obama, the president. It looks like, on the face of it, they fear that there may be something that comes out of all that stuff, which may also need to be covered by a wide-ranging pardon that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Follow the money. And 2014 is the exact year that Hunter Biden was weirdly named director of that oil company, Burisma. Now, I consider myself, our panel brought up the MAGA group of Americans out there, and I consider myself part of that group. Yet, I might got canceled for this, but I don't really care about this pardon. What I care about is the level of deception coming from the left. So let's please not pretend that Joe Biden pardoned his son because of the love he has for his family, because of the love he has for his Nepo baby. This is the same man that won't acknowledge his own grandchild, Navy, has still not acknowledged that she exists. And now we want to pretend that he loves his family so much that's why he pardoned his son. The American people and the group of MAGA Americans, if we want to say, care about the deception. They care that the left has told us for the last 4 years, don't believe your lying ears, don't believe your lying eyes. Joe Biden told the American people, I, as a Biden, am mentally fit, and I promise you I will not drop out of this race. I have never discussed business dealings with my son, Hunter. I will not pardon my son, Hunter. He has ignored his mental cognitive decline and told us that he just had a cold. The lies, the deception, that's why the Democrats lost. The hypocrisy and the deception is what the American people said we are sick of. But I guess not everyone on this panel agrees with that, or maybe they didn't get the memo.
Yeah, Wajahat, here's the problem, right? I don't think necessarily that's why the Democrats, there are a lot of reasons, right? Cost of living, illegal immigration, all the woke crap and so on. I think they all played a factor.
Terrible candidate.
I think when Trump got shot, actually, the way he responded probably had a significant effect on how Americans may have voted. But the problem you've got now, looking forward, is the high moral ground, which was already extremely rocky for Democrats, has basically disintegrated. It just has. You know, what Biden's done, he hasn't just torched his own legacy on the way out, which was already tottering after him refusing to stand aside when he should have done to give the Democrats a better chance of winning. But now what he said is the rule of law doesn't apply to my family. And when I said it applies to everyone, actually that was a lie. When he said repeatedly, I'm never going to pardon him, that was also a lie. When he ordered his press secretary to repeatedly, in a very kind of irritated manner by the end, respond to the Fox News guys, Peter Doocy, almost in a dismissive, arrogant manner. How dare you keep asking me this stupid question? We've already told you people, it's never going to happen. It's the lengthy period this went on, the emphatic nature of the denials, no equivocation at all. What is removed is the next time you come on Uncensored, and I love having you on, you're going to start going on again about Trump and lies and hypocrisy and shamelessness and all the things, your greatest hits of Trump loathing, which is fine. And I'm going to say to you each time, well, yeah. So like Joe Biden. And you can't say anything. You'll be muted. You've been effectively neutered. The high moral ground has crashed behind your ears, Wajahat.
One thing I will never be is muted. And what I'll say is this. I disagree with Michelle Obama. I always have when she said, when they go low, we go high. I say, when they go low, take them out by the knees in a legal knee bar, which is a UFC legal move. I, for one, am not Charlie Brown, right? It's Lucy and Charlie Brown, for those who have seen this Peanut cartoon. Lucy sits there with the football. And Charlie Brown says to Lucy, hey, are you going to lift the football? And Lucy snickers and says no. And then what happens? She lifts up the football and Charlie Brown falls on his butt. Those are the Democrats. I'm not like that. I don't believe in this nonsense where Donald Trump gets to incite a violent insurrection, literally sleep with every porn star, cheat on all of his wives, lie, commit tax fraud, and his base doesn't care. And then the same base right now in front of me has this outrage against Joe Biden for pardoning his son, an 82-year-old man who pardons his son.
Actually, no, hang on.
For 4 years, they went after him.
Hang on. Apart from the fact, listen. You said some things about Trump there, which are just completely untrue. He hasn't slept with every porn star. You said he slept with every porn star. Obviously not.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my bad. Not every.
I know how much the truth. Well, Jai, I know how much the truth matters to you. You're a bastion of veracity.
Piers, listen.
So when you say you slept with every porn star, that's a lot of people.
Piers, you know that was a misspeak. I had no problem correcting myself, and I know you're doing your best to put lipstick on a pig right now with Donald Trump.
I don't need to.
And it's very admirable.
I don't need to because your own
pig.
You, sir. I don't need to because your own pig is covered in lipstick.
Listen, Joe Biden, go ahead, throw him under the bus. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, and like I said, he lied. But why did he lie? And I want to say this again. Because they went after Hunter Biden for 4 years. They tried to find something, anything. They couldn't. They
like the left did with Trump.
Wait. No. A jury of Donald Trump's peers. Can I just say this real quick? A jury of Donald Trump's peers, not Joe Biden, not the AG, a jury of his peers, human beings, people, average Joes in New York, found him guilty.
In New York.
Found him guilty for the hush money scandal.
In New York.
Donald Trump himself.
Yeah, a trumped-up, pathetic case that should never have gone to court, in which a former American president was dragged through a criminal court over shuffling paperwork over an alleged one-night stand 18 years ago, which he, by the way, has continued to deny. The idea that that was good for America or American democracy is for the birds. It was a total disgrace that ever went to court.
I'll say one thing, and only one thing. Donald Trump is the only president, either Republican or Democrat, to this day who refuses to admit that he lost the 2020 election. He's the only president to incite a violent insurrection. To this day, he refuses to apologize it. And he also promised that he would pardon the January 6th criminal violent insurrectionists whom he calls patriots and hostages. That is a direct threat. If you're perfectly fine with that, then please spare me all your fake outrage.
But it's fine to
over Hunter Biden's gun possession.
It's fine to support.
You guys are all okay with that.
It's fine to support people who illegally possess guns and cheat on their taxes. Yeah, that's your kind of criminal.
But no, if Hunter Biden was to use that gun in a violent insurrection, he'd be part of Trump's cabinet.
Well, the state he was in, who knew what he might do with it? The guy was a drug addict.
He probably would have been part of a violent insurrection.
Yeah, and by the way, the reason we,
and by the way, we'd praise him.
By the way, we didn't know exactly what he may or may not have done, because the story in the New York Post just before the 2020 election, which was going to expose the contents of the infamous laptop, was suppressed by liberal-controlled big tech media. And the New York Post account was frozen off Twitter, as it was then, for the entire period up to the election. That could have swung the election Trump's way if we'd known half of it.
You mean like Elon Musk and Mark Anderson, and you mean like Mark Zuckerberg, who just dined with Donald Trump? That liberal tech? Well, yes. Oh, how they bend the knee.
I'm talking about the liberal tech in 2020. Joe, let me bring you in. Joe, go on.
Look, I just want it's important to say two things. Joe Biden made a mistake. I've acknowledged that. I think the biggest mistake he's made is this is political. You and I agree, Piers. This is going to help Trump. But 2 points. I'm sorry, respectfully, to my two Trump-supporting folks on the panel. Don't ever say that MAGA doesn't have a problem with or has a problem with deception and lying. Come on now. Joe Biden lied repeatedly about this, but we ain't never seen a politician in America that lies as much as Trump does, and clearly his supporters don't have a problem with that. Let's not, Piers, excuse Biden made a mistake. But Donald Trump, regardless of what Biden did last night, Donald Trump's going to do some scary stuff for 4 years.
Who made a mistake?
Joe Biden made a huge mistake in pardoning his son.
It's not a mistake, is it?
Not a mistake. It's not a
it's
mistake.
No. It's a wanton
Piers.
act of lying, shameless hypocrisy. He stared down the barrel of cameras for months, assuring the American people as they were trying to decide who to vote for, I will never pardon my son. Because you know why? Because nobody's above the law. And he wanted people to think about that when they were going to cast their vote.
Piers,
and it turned out the only person who's above the law is his family.
Piers, I agree with every word you just said. When I say a mistake, I mean politically it was a big mistake because it will only help Trump.
Right. Okay. Let me bring back Grant. Grant, I mean, it seems to me just when Trump didn't think his Thanksgiving could get any better, having just won the greatest comeback victory probably in political history, having survived 2 assassination attempts, having seen his rivals just collapse in the way that they did. And now he discovers that actually Joe Biden is exposed as someone who's prepared to brazenly lie to bail out his drug addict, gun-toting son. I mean, it's been an amazing period to be Donald Trump.
Well, look, I mean, John Morgan said that he made a U-turn. These 2 guys are talking about he made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake. He lied to the American public. This is what they have been doing the entire time. How he was replaced was a lie. Kamala being a great candidate, a lie. They're going to win Iowa, a lie. The only thing you guys can do is bring Trump in to negate the bullshit that Joe Biden and the Harris administration have been lying to the American public. And this isn't new, by the way. We have been lied to, as the Democratic Party has been lying to the people for 50 years in this country. We're going to help you. We're going to save you. We're going to fix your problems. We're going to save Social Security and Medicare, and we're going to save your minimum wage jobs. None of that has happened. The economy is terrible for the middle class. It's shrinking. And this is why this election was won, okay? Because Donald Trump brings hope of economic turnaround. Call him whatever you want. He's an imperfect candidate that won in a landslide. He slaughtered your side. Your people couldn't even show up to vote for a terrible candidate, the worst candidate that has ever run for political office in my lifetime. And that's why y'all lost this thing.
Yeah.
And you lied to the American public, and the American public knows you're lying now.
Yeah. Caitlin, what advice do you have for Trump? He's obviously got this dramatically different kind of cabinet lined up. I spoke to him. He rang me last week, and we were talking about it. I said, it's arguably one of the most diverse cabinets that anyone has put forward as a president. I definitely got the feeling from him that actually having 4 years out of office has been a good thing for Trump. He's been able to look back at his first term, probably never thought he might, despite his confidence, that he may never get another chance. He's got that second chance. He's got a much bigger mandate than he had first time. He's got at least 2 years uninterrupted to deliver what he wants to deliver. He's got super brains like Elon Musk at his side to help him do it, which I think is a good thing. What do you want to see him do? Because he's got this, like I say, this very diverse bunch of disruptors. His argument being a lot of them have been very successful in their own fields and they're very loyal to him. Why should I go back to establishment figures who are disloyal? I kind of agree with him.
I absolutely agree. And what I would love for our president-elect to focus on is the unity party, is that unifying message, right? And all of these appointees are disruptors. That's exactly what they are. And I say the bigger meltdown we're seeing from folks in the deep state over some of these appointments, the better the pick actually is. You see the left freaking out over some of these appointments, like an Elon Musk, like a Vivek Ramaswamy, like a RFK Jr., who promises to bring back and restore health to this nation. MAGA was one of the movements. I traveled across the country to a bunch of college campuses, engaging with my generation, which is the millennials, and the generation coming up behind me, which are the Gen Zers. And what really brought especially those females on board to Donald Trump's movement was the MAGA side of things, was this what I started with, Piers, this unity message, this unity party. And that's exactly what I think Donald Trump should focus on. It's really hard when we're talking about Hunter Biden being pardoned and the left continues to say no one is above the law. It's really hard for the American people to sit back and listen to that message when you're talking about pardoning your own son, when you're talking about allowing millions of illegals across this country, when you're talking about these illegals raping and murdering young women. It's really hard to sit back and believe that message.
Wajahat, one of the more controversial picks on this nominee list is Kash Patel. Many are arguing today, well, this is precisely why Trump has put someone like him into the justice system, running the FBI, because of the abuse of that justice system by Joe Biden and the Democrats. That's why you need someone like this.
Yeah, they say also silly things that Mexico will pay for the wall and that Haitians are eating pets. They say a lot of nutty things. But when I think of unity, I think of Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense pick. Earlier today, it was reported that Pete Hegseth in 2015 drunkenly yelled, "Kill all Muslims," in a bar. And over the weekend, his mother sent an email, which he acknowledged, tearfully acknowledged that she sent to her son, calling him an abuser of women. And also this Pete Hegseth, who's a Fox News host, a disruptor who has no qualifications as a Secretary of Defense, his own Army teammate, National Guard mate, called him out because he looked at his tattoos and said he might be an internal threat. With Kash Patel, not qualified at all. It's a recurring trend with Trump cabinet members. They have no expertise, but they have affirmative action because they're loyal to Trump. Never been an FBI agent, will not get the loyalty of the FBI agents in the field, but has promised openly that he will use his position to go after Trump's critics, specifically two critics, political rivals and the media. So, Piers, you should be careful that you be on Trump's good side for the next 4 years, kiss his butt, bend the knee, because if Kash Patel is the head of the FBI and you go against MAGA and Trump, Kash Patel has promised he will use the FBI to go after Trump's critics. This is what happens in a dictatorship, not in the United States of America. So if MAGA is fine with a dictatorship, just let us know.
Oddly, when the Democrats encouraged the Justice Department to launch an unprecedented lawfare campaign against Trump, charging him with nearly 100 different things, you were fully behind that. You love that weaponizing of the justice system. What
Biden
changed?
did not encourage anyone. Here's proof. Biden had Merrick Garland, who was probably the most pathetic, weak, impotent attorney general we've ever had. Bill Barr admitted that he interfered on behalf of Donald Trump and helped his friends like Roger Stone. Merrick Garland, for 4 years, did nothing, even as Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection. I think one of the two worst things that will hurt Biden's legacy. Number one, Gaza. I think you and I agree with that. And number two, the pick of Merrick Garland. He was completely hands-off. And by the way, Donald Trump, not going to spend a single day of his life in jail, even though he's a convicted criminal. He failed up in life. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said, I'm going to go after my critics who are the enemy from within. He promised in the final 3 weeks of the election, I will unleash the military and National Guard against the critics. What president, Republican or Democrat, has ever said, I will use the military and National Guard against my critics? Donald Trump, the people that MAGA worship, a dictator who said he will terminate the Constitution and be a dictator for the day.
You know the odd thing.
MAGA loves that.
The odd thing
so
about,
why do you love a dictator?
Well, Jahat, the odd thing is that with Trump, I often find that what he actually doesn't live up to a lot of the shoot from the hip rhetoric, right?
But isn't that scary,
well,
Piers?
Well, no, not really. Once you know him, it's not that scary. Whereas what's scarier...
I don't know him.
What is arguably scarier is someone like Joe Biden, who people trust, they believe he's saintly Joe, people buy into it, and then he looks down the barrel of a camera and says, no one is above the law, and I'm not going to pardon my son, and then it turns out his son is the one who's above the law. You know, I find that kind of where people posture as these bastions of superior virtue and veracity, and they turn out to be full of shit.
Here's after my wonderful soliloquy of facts, you respond with that, which shows me you're grasping at straws.
But they weren't facts.
And I respect your intelligence.
You were just spraying a normal hyperbole about Trump. And by the way, the hyperbole about Trump, it doesn't work anymore with Jahat. The American public went, we've heard all this, and we're just not going to buy into it.
Listen,
let me bring in Joe quickly.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Sorry.
And by the way, Pierce, I agree with that. The American public ignored Wajahat and they elected him fair and square.
Yeah.
But please, my friend Pierce, don't say that Trump's not scary. I'll just remind you of
I don't think he's
facts.
scary.
He's not scary.
Well, then you don't think, Pierce, respectfully, then you don't think this is scary. He's the only president in American history who lost an election and refused to concede. I think that's scary. Secondly, he committed crimes trying to overthrow an American election. I think that's scary.
Sorry,
hang on. But that's scary.
Hang on, he's not been convicted of any crimes about overthrowing an election. And he's not
He
going
was
to be.
indicted for
And by the way,
committing
he's not
crimes.
going to be now.
I know that, Pierce. I know that. But does it bother you that he tried to overthrow an election? Yes or no?
I tell you what bothered me. The scenes on January the 6th were appalling, as I said at the time. Absolutely appalling. Exactly how complicit Trump is in that, we may never actually find out now. And that is a shame. I believe in transparency, right? But the bottom line is, the one case that went to court before the election was a pathetic, trumped-up load of nonsense about a porn star. And that demeaned America, it demeaned the justice system, and honestly, to have the brass neck to start lecturing us again about weaponizing the justice system after what Biden's just done is laughable, gentlemen. Anyway, I've got to leave it there. Great panel. Thank you all very much indeed. We will see. Well, it's never going to be quiet now, is it? That's the main thing. But I appreciate you joining me. Thank you all very much.